Hey guys, this is Elias, and I wanted to do a video on directed energy weapons. I found some information. Everyone's talking about them. They're talking about how they're used for the California fires and whatnot. They're doing all this damage. So while I don't rule it out, I wanted to look into it and see what was out there. So I looked at Lockheed Martin's website and I found some interesting information that's published on their website. And, it has a picture of an energy weapon blowing a hole in the hood of a truck through the engine block, that kind of thing. I started there, but I didn't want to focus on that. I wanted to focus on going beyond that information. So I found an interview on defense systems with the guy that created all this stuff, who's worked at Lockheed Martin for 44 years. His name is Paul Shattuck. So this article on Defense Systems website is called Direct Energy Weapons Making a Great Leap Forward, and this was done in 2016. I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights, but Paul Shattuck is the director and chief engineer for directed energy weapons at Lockheed Martin Space Systems and Company, and he's been there since 1974. With the focus area of the development of beam control technologies for high-powered laser and directed laser energy systems. So he's been working on this for years with a team of people. So this is not new technology. And side note, I'll have all the links for these sources that I'm looking at so you can check them out for yourself. Anyway, I wanted to capture a couple of highlights that stood out to me and just kind of share some of my thoughts and musings. So down here, this is the guy right here. Good looking guy. He looks like a strawberry. Anyway, down here, he's talking about rockets, mortars, and small unmanned aerial systems are presenting an increased threat around the world. And I mean, I kind of listen to mainstream news and alternative news, and I don't really hear about all this, so I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to. But he's saying that his customers are looking for precise, affordable, or rapid response firepower to defend against these threats. I'm curious as to who his customers are, and I think we might find some down here. Now, the interviewer states, your firm is fast moving or leading in development of 100 kilowatt and 300 kilowatt laser guns for the Army and possibly the Air Force, and that they should be available and deployable by 2022. Please give a snapshot, etc., etc. I got hung up just on the question because apparently just to ask this question, he had knowledge that this is where they're going. So it wasn't a question of, do you have this in the works? It's in the works. And it's slated to be deployed in a few years. 3. So this is alarming to me because if they're already mounting them on planes and drones, they're going to be handheld weapons. And if they kind of talk about it and publish this information out there, they probably are already using them and have them. They're not going to talk and speculate, and then if this information gets into the hands of our opposition, quote-unquote opposition, they could work against us. So if this is already published, they already have it. I find that very alarming because you can't really see lasers, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But let me finish going through a couple of highlighted items that I felt were important. Mr. Shattuck said last year we began production of a 60 kilowatt system for a U.S. Army vehicle, the first laser built using a modular technique. The Army has the option to add more modules and increase the power from 60 kilowatts to 120 kilowatts as a result of the laser's modularity. And I can't imagine what that kind of power would do. The more you increase it, the more you can decimate something. I just don't understand, and they don't really discuss in this article for what intents and purposes you would need to scale up. So I'm kind of wondering, what 60 kilowatt system can do already, and what do they want to do with 120 kilowatts? Like, what is it that they need to take down that 60 couldn't do? So I hope I can find some information at some point on my journey, and when I do, I'll share it with you. Down here, one of his customers is the Department of Defense. We developed the beam control system for the Missile Defense Agency's airborne laser that shot down a boosting ballistic missile in 2010. A boosting ballistic missile. Now, this isn't a test. He's saying this is what they did. So there's stuff happening in our skies, in the world, while people like you and me are going to work, going to the grocery store, going to the gym, going to the club, going to dinner, hanging out with friends, sleeping late, whatever, drinking, whatever. All of this kind of stuff is happening unbeknownst. And it's kind of creepy to me to know that this has happened in 2010. I know what I was doing in 2010, and I'm like, I don't remember hearing anything about any threats or ballistic missiles being taken out. But this happened. That system used a megawatt-class chemical laser, but it was a strategic mission in which the target was in front of the aircraft. So something was going on, and I don't remember hearing about it. Did you? If you did, leave me a comment and let me know where I can find more information on that, because I would like to look that up. The air-based laser weapon system can offer flexibility and precision for self-defense against aircraft, missiles, and weapons on the ground. They also have offensive potential, including precision ground attack against defended targets or swarm of attack boats. So this is just kind of expanding on what it can do. The interviewer says that there was a directed energy summit last year in 2015, as of the date of this article, which was 2016, and it signaled the need for much closer stakeholder ties, melding government agencies, the national labs, think tanks, Department of Defense, industry, academia, so the U.S. can stay ahead of the threat. So they're mobilizing every potential resource, from colleges to existing government agencies, and stakeholder ties. I'm kind of wondering how the stakeholders can help aside from money. But this is how they're mobilizing everything. They have a summit, a directed energy summit. That kind of blows my mind because I just learned about this last year. And some of the people involved, some of their customers, look, DARPA. Now, if you know a little bit about DARPA, I got introduced to DARPA when I found Regina Dugan's video some years ago where she was talking about implanting chips into people's bodies so you can scan and do things and that kind of stuff. I don't want technology inside my body personally, and I think it's, as a Christian, it's very mark of the beast. But I found it very interesting that DARPA is also involved in this laser beam directed energy weapon situation, when I thought it was just technology about, quote unquote, being able to scan your medical records with ease. So, and I have this other tab, but it's just basically page 2. My highlights didn't carry over. But the article goes on to discuss things like, because of small size of drones, they're not going to be able to carry a very powerful laser. They won't have much effect against much larger ground or sea systems. And I highlighted that because I thought, okay, well, if these things are on aircraft, what is the scope of the aircraft? Does it have to be a big plane? But conceivably, it could be a drone, although if it mounted on a drone, it wouldn't be particularly powerful. If it was on a plane, it could take out much larger ground or sea systems, but if it was on a drone, it could probably take out things smaller than ground or sea systems. And keep that in the back of your head. I'm going to go somewhere with this. I'm going to throw a thought in put a bug in your ear in just a second. The Athena demo, and the Athena is one of the aircraft that has the latest advanced direct energy weapon, would call an emerging operational capability. A tactical laser melted part of a truck engine, but the vehicle was static. How long before the same task could be accomplished against an enemy's armed vehicle on the move, and at what speeds? And Mr. Shattuck goes on to say the technology and the systems are capable of taking out a truck on the move. Speed of light weapons have destroyed rockets and small boats, so we know we can defeat moving targets. And I'm just going to jet over to a photograph I found. Where was it? I'll come back to the photograph later. Keep that in the back of your head too. Moving targets. I think that's the last note that kind of stuck out to me here. So let's go over to this website, the physics website. I was kind of wondering if you can see lasers, because some say that there were laser beams that were caught on film during the fires last year in the North Bay of California. And I bookmarked that video here, and we could kind of see this happening here. I'm going to turn the sound down because I just want to offer a little commentary. But check this out. Let's go back. Now, I study photography, and it's definitely not a lens flare. This is very suspect, but this was happening while the fires were happening. It's quite alarming. I want to show you a photograph that I found. Let's see here. These were fires with the similar kind of forensic in other locations from Portugal to Tennessee, but I did a search on some photographs, and I wanted to hone in on this one that I found. Give me just a moment. This is on a slideshow, so I can't control it starting or stopping. But I didn't see this photograph at any point when I started waking up to this stuff. But look at this. These are cars on a highway, and some of them are on fire and some of them aren't. And I'm looking at this. This looks like a boat. So there's no engine or anything happening with that. This one's on fire, but the engine is up front. So I just have to ask the question, why would the back part catch on fire? Okay, you're smoking in the back seat and you torch the car. Well, what about this one? And this one, we can't even see what happened. It's just up in flames. So I just ask these questions. It's like, what is happening that this is occurring? Did someone set it on fire, or was it one of those laser beams? So I just wanted to share that image with you. Oh, and this one, before I go. This was a good one too, because this was in Santa Rosa. This is at one of the, it's some Catholic school up there. This fire has very definitive lines, and that doesn't happen in nature or chemistry. That just, you don't see that kind of thing if it's just left to its own natural devices. This points to something very intentional. These defined lines are just, they're just mind-baffling to me. This is how it burned. I'm not saying that the laser cut this side, but it definitely burned like this. There's no way to know unless we caught video of it actually performing this action. But this is the byproduct, and the byproduct is still very suspicious. So on this physics page, I asked the question, I didn't ask this particular question, but I kind of Googled it so I could find it. What makes some laser beams visible and other laser beams invisible? So here, the visible, most of them, it seems like they can be visible, but there can be invisible ones as well. This description isn't very good, but I'll read this one down here. As previous answers stated, the wavelength or frequency, and keep that in the back of your head because that term is coming up a lot lately. You should learn about frequencies. And intensity of the beam are important, as well as the type and amount of impurities in the air. The beam must be of a wavelength that is visible to humans, and fog or dust scatters the light very strongly so that you can see it. However, even in pure clean air, you will be able to see a laser beam under certain conditions. And I also saw this. The visibility is determined by three things: the frequency of the laser, the strength of the laser, the dust or mist in the air. Without dust or mist in the air, you don't see any laser. It's just dust particles or mist droplets which reflect the light of the laser. So when you think about these photographs here, about these cars, this can happen in the daytime and we wouldn't see it unless there was stuff happening in the air. And the frequency. So the potential for this to be completely invisible is very high. And there's a video out there of some woman in a black jacket and a red dress, and she's promoting the Lockheed Martin laser, and she does state that they are invisible. I find all this really disturbing. I wanted to show a photograph. This is on RT's website, and this is an airstrike that was done in Mosul over in Iraq. Doesn't this look familiar to you? This looks very familiar, and if it doesn't, you can take a look at my video when I went up to Paradise, California, to show the decimation. There's a lot of stuff here. It's like a little roof and some rubble, but if this was like a fire or something, it would be very different. Now, since this was an airstrike, this is probably a bomb or possibly a directed energy weapon being used. And it bears a strong resemblance to the fires, the aftermath of the fires that we saw in Paradise, California, in Santa Rosa, Thousand Oaks, California, Portugal, Tennessee, various places. So I want to leave you with that thought and have a little information, maybe spark your interest in directed energy weapons. Learn more about it because it's a real thing. They're using it, and the customers that Lockheed Martin sells this to can't control what the customer is going to do with it. So when you think about concepts like Agenda 21 and the Georgia Guidestones, reducing the human population down to 500 billion on the entire planet, Agenda 21 is alarming because it's talking about moving people into major cities and creating more wildlands. This is a really compelling, easy tool for them to use to make that happen, because this forces people out of their living spaces with nowhere to go, unless you go to a major city that offers you something smaller. Anyway, that's going to be a topic for another video at another time. But it's a huge 1,000-piece puzzle that we have to kind of put together, and I just wanted to offer a piece of it. So thank you very much for taking time to watch this video. If you like it, definitely hit the like button, share it with people, comment, give me an intelligent comment. If you want to school me and, teach me something, give me some tools so I can learn. If you have an argument against it, give me some resources so I can educate myself. And if you're in support of it, let's build a community and figure out how we can share this with more people and see what we can do so we don't get burned out of our homes and our cars, okay? So with that, this is Elias with Truth Remains. Take care, be safe, God bless, and keep your eyes up on the skies. You might be interested in what you see.